Hello, group of visionaries. This is Emily LeVan. I've been the moderator for this week's forum discussion about the Halstead piece from the Harvard Business Review. I just wanted to give us a quick recap and summary of the discussion that we've had and some of the leadership traits that we identified throughout the course of our discussion this week. First, I just want to summarize some of the leadership models that we talked about and identified that were highlighted in the piece from the Harvard Business Review. One was the individualized leadership approach. And there are numerous examples of this type of approach in Halstead's military career. I think some of the take-home points that really were most salient for me was that she developed a relationship with her subordinates and truly showed that she cared about each and every one as individuals. And I think this enabled them to get on board with all of her leadership style and with the missions that she was leading them into. They were engaged and they were motivated because they saw that she cared about them as individuals. She took the time to get to know each and every one of them, and this enabled them to get on board with her approach. I liked the quote, I think that Eugene identified, saying, define your success by how you make other people successful. She really pulled her ego out of her leadership approach and really focused on building up those around her, and that enabled her to be successful as well. She also utilized the contingency model, which is a model in which you match your style with a particular situation. I think we talked about this in our lecture for that particular week as well. You know, if we're in a code situation, say in the emergency department where I work, you know, my leadership style is going to be much different than it is if I'm dealing with a patient who is having a threatened miscarriage. It's a very different approach, and so you implement different leadership styles based on the particular situation. A couple of other theories that we talked about throughout the course of the week. One was the servant theory, which is focusing on service before self. And again, we've talked about that. She was a very selfless leader. She put her ego aside and she really focused on building up others as opposed to building herself up. She listened. She heard from her subordinates and enabled her listening to affirm other people. She also inspired others because they saw that she was trustworthy. I think the chicken heart example really exemplifies this. People were able to get on board with her because they knew that she was all in and she was not going to ask them to do anything that she was not willing to do herself. She nourished others and helped them become whole. And that was evident through so many of her actions throughout the course of her career. Some other things that we talked about during the course of our discussion this week were other types of leadership traits that she exemplified. Perseverance. Accountability. And accountability is not just to having her others, her subordinates be accountable to her, but she was accountable to herself. Again, she was not going to ask her subordinates to do anything that she was not willing to do. And I think that goes a long way in terms of people getting on board with her if they see that, whoa, this lady's all in and she's not going to ask us to do anything that we're not asked to do. She also demonstrated self-awareness and empathy as well as selflessness. She also showed a trait that I really admire, grit, throughout the entire course of her career. I also appreciated her approach to when subordinates would stray or would go off the mark. She had more of a motivational approach than a punitive approach. The whole idea of restorative justice is really in vogue now, and I really appreciate that approach. As opposed to, let's use the stick, it's more of let's use a carrot. And the example that was exemplified in the piece was about the two soldiers who were drinking alcohol and brought their girlfriends in, and their punishment was that they had to go to a homeless shelter. And I think that was a pretty impactful experience for them and really helped them to open their eyes. So again, instead of a stick, it was more of a carrot to kind of help to show them the way. And then finally, I think one last piece is that above and beyond all, she was truly authentic. And I think that when people see authenticity, they can really get on board with that and they can buy into it. And, clearly her subordinates and her co-workers were on board with her. And that was really exemplified when her superior gave her that no confidence vote. And she was authentic. She went to her group and she said, listen, this is what the situation is. But instead of them maybe going, kind of above her and siding with the superior, they said, listen, we back you, complete support. And you can see that the mission was very successful. And I think part of the reason it was so successful is because she was able to be so authentic with her group. Hopefully that gives us a good summary of what the discussion was this week. One other piece of the puzzle that I want to just throw into the mix that I really appreciated with the group is that we started to look at how the Halstead piece can translate to our work as nursing leaders. Some of us have defined leadership roles, and some of us are just growing into leadership roles. And it's exciting to think about how we can use the information from the piece and from this discussion to help grow our own roles as we move forward as nursing leaders. So again, thanks for the great input this week and the great discussion. I look forward to more discussions in weeks to come. Take care, gang.